Welcome to the DNA Talks podcast, where we take on the mission of unlocking the code of your genetics. This season is all about you, upgrading your health, not just on the surface, but down to the root cause. Join us as your clinicians at the DNA company investigate your DNA and beyond. The intention of this podcast is to enhance your lifestyle by changing what is in your control. This does not substitute the medical advice given by your personal doctor, therapist, and other healthcare professionals.
Hello and welcome to DNA Talks podcast. We are so excited to have you here, and we are so excited to have our guest today, Candice Barley of Holistic Life. And I think you need to grab a notepad. I think you need to grab a cup of green tea and sit down because this is going to be a really good one. And you're going to want to take a lot of notes. And I know you're going to want to reach out to Candice afterwards. So welcome, Candice. We're so glad to have you today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Holistic life. Okay, so help me because what is
Yes,
holistic life?
holistico. It's Italian for holistic, and it was on a journey that I took to Italy by myself after I had gotten my life back. I had been so sick, and I never thought I was going to be able to even leave my house, much less my bed. So to travel to Italy by myself on a trip I had always dreamed of, to me, that's where Holistical Life was born.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so we're going to get into that journey. Today, we're going to talk about breast implants. Girls, this is booby day, and we're going to talk about the health or the lack of health due to inflammation and something you may be dealing with or may not, but you may know someone who is. Candice, tell us your story about BII, which is traditionally known as breast implant illness, but I love that you have a new take on this. Tell us what BII means for you.
Yes, for me, it means breast implant inflammation, because all breast implant illness truly is your body's response to a foreign object that sparks an inflammatory effect that increases over time until eventually many women have chronic inflammation. And when you are chronically inflamed, everything in your system starts to go haywire. Hormones, thyroid, gut, everything. So for me, I got implants when I was young and fairly healthy. I was 24 years old and I had two small children. And I had been very small chested my whole life. I was bullied in middle school and high school. And once I was done breastfeeding my children, I was back to being a triple A, which is essentially nothing. So
Do you know what they
I,
used to say to me with as
what?
flat-chested? They'd say, "Carpenter's dream, flat as a board with no notches." That's how flat I was
Yeah, yeah, oh
until
yeah.
I had kids, and then I became La Vaca, the cow, because each of my breasts became the size of half a watermelon. I was
Oh
at
yeah. I mean,
40G.
yeah, I had when I was breastfeeding, that was not an issue. I had massive breasts. But
Yeah.
then once the milk was gone, everything was gone. And so I was just like, I had unresolved trauma from the bullying that I had endured, and I was like, I don't want to go through this again. Just mentally, I want to feel feminine. So I got a very small set of saline implants. And even though it didn't look quite right, that's just when you have very little breast tissue. And even if the implants are small, there's still just kind of this, it looked like grapefruits under the skin. It just didn't look like natural breasts. But in clothing, I felt like I had a more feminine aesthetic. And so I was happy. Within about 6 months of that, I started struggling with chronic fatigue. So tired, I was having to take naps during the day, which was strange to me because at this point I had, a 4 year old and a 2 year old. And they're sleeping through the night. I've, done all the hard stuff. I shouldn't be that tired. So I went to the doctor and they said, nope, this is just because you're a mom. This is what it's like to have two small children. And I'm like, gosh, well, when I had a 2-year old who wasn't sleeping and I was breastfeeding all night, a newborn, I was never this tired. It's still nothing to me connected that this had started after getting my implants. But I just was like, oh, I guess this is motherhood. And I left and, they ran blood work. Everything came back fine. And then about a year and a half after that, one of the implants ruptured. And so, yeah, I had to go back and get them both replaced with another set of saline implants. And each time this happened, they would be like, "Oh, we've got to make them a little bigger. Your skin's stretched out. We have to make them a little bigger." And I was like, oh, because I never wanted to have big breasts, just breasts.
But I find it curious that if people ask me, can I get implants? Should I get implants? I'm like, well, for goodness sakes, whatever you do, get the saline. So if there's a rupture, at least you've got salt water releasing and not silicone. But you still had massive inflammation with
Correct.
saline.
Because here's what they don't tell you: all implants are silicone. Just the filler is saline or gel
Right.
silicone. But the implant shell itself is comprised of silicone and about 40 other chemical and heavy metal contaminants.
Did you
So,
say 40 other
yes,
chemicals? And I'm betting a few of them are endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors.
absolutely. Solvents, xylene, benzene, platinum,
Ooh, I'm
mercury.
getting God bumps.
Yeah, there's all different types of things that you should not have in your body. And they state that there is no proof that those things microleach out into your system. I know that to not necessarily be true because at my work that I do now, I have seen the total toxicity test of women with implants, and the chemicals that are comprised in the implant shell, especially with women who sauna with implants, those exact chemicals are extremely high in their system. So
So
the
when you said kind of testing, are you talking organic acid testing? Are you talking urine testing? Are you
It's
talking what kind of
urinalysis.
test?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a urine test, and it looks at heavy metals, BPA's, uh, mold, all the different types of benzene, all of the chemicals, all of the environmental toxins, but specifically certain chemicals that are comprised in the implant shell will come back very high in women, particularly who sauna with implants.
So you've got the list of 40 chemicals that you know are in there, and then you've got your your urine test that has it, and you can see a correlation. So if somebody's having symptoms like you were talking about, and breast implant illness or breast implant inflammation can cause a wide variety from sleep disturbances, hormone disturbances, pain, lethargy, chronic fatigue. What else have you seen? If people are having symptoms, give me some more symptoms that somebody goes, gosh, my doctor
Yeah.
says everything's fine. And I really hate this for people. I've done my blood work. My doctor says everything's fine. And yet I still feel like shit.
Yeah. But
So
I always
give
say
us
your
some
blood
more
work's fine
symptoms.
until it's not. You're
It
going
must be in
in.
your head.
That's right. And I kept going in. So I progressed. I eventually got silicone implants because I kept having saline ruptures. But my symptoms started, the most common is chronic fatigue. That's the first symptom of your body saying, hey, we're having to exert energy somewhere else. We are having an immune response. So chronic fatigue is generally the first. And then it goes on to, you begin having hormonal imbalances. You begin having, a lot of women are suddenly diagnosed with Hashimoto's, very common. You begin having heart palpitations, breathing problems, hair loss, very common. Well, not as common, but you begin having a sluggish liver, which over time that can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is what happened to me, to the point that my liver enzymes were doubling and tripling every 4 weeks. I couldn't get out of bed. I had full body tremors. A very interesting symptom that no doctor knows what to do with, and that I had, and that I've had many women come forward who have, is this vibration inside your body. It's an internal tremor, and you literally wake up at night and feel like the bed's shaking, but it's inside. And what we've come to realize is this is just all essentially neural inflammation.
I
And
was gonna
so
say, this to me is a brain inflammation where the brain is spasming, saying, "Help me. I can't
yes,
handle, process all these toxins." That's exactly what it
exactly.
says to me.
Exactly. So it's essentially, so that's why you have brain fog, headaches, migraines, um, difficulty with word retrieval. There's a lot of neural inflammation symptoms that start, and then of course goes on to gut issues. And so the list is pretty endless, because you're just dealing, it's your body's reaction to inflammation, and everyone responds to inflammation differently. I had one woman that I worked with who had a place on her spine that they were convinced was cancer, and they did biopsies and tried all different types of things to get to the root of what was going on with her. And she had so much back pain she could hardly move, and she was young, she was like 30. We removed her implants, and within 3 months, that lesion on her spine was gone. Her pain was gone.
Wow.
So it's just, and there was nothing else that had changed. It was, I was scheduled for a liver biopsy. I couldn't get out of bed. I had full body. That internal tremor ended up turning into full body physical tremors. And within 8 weeks of having my implants removed, my liver enzymes had returned to normal. My tremors were gone. My heart palpitations improved. And, through doing some different detoxes over the years and understanding more about how to support my pathways, which is eventually what led me to getting my genetics done, I now feel better at 47 than I did even in my 20s before I had implants.
So you got breast implants at 24. When was it? What was your aha as you got ill, more and more and more ill, liver failure, can't get out of bed? Who finally said, "We gotta get these out"? Who said,
Well,
"I think this is what it."
this is, if you have gotten God bumps up to this point, you're really going to get them
And
now.
I continue to get them.
Yeah, so I was unable to take care of three sons. Two are much older. I had a younger son at the time, and my mom had to move in with me to take care of my youngest. And they were gone, and I made it out of my bed to a chair in the corner of my room, and I was just done and desperate. And I cried from the depths of my soul with my eyes closed, and I said, "What is wrong with me?" Because no, I was seeing doctors daily. And in my right ear, I heard a voice say breast implants. I was 40 years old, 41 years old. I had never heard a breast implants, never heard a voice in my entire life like that, and never have since. So I was not getting the clue that I had had my implants so long that it was just a part of me. It never occurred to me. And no one ever said that breast implants could make you sick. It terrified me. Once I calmed down and opened my eyes to see if anyone was there, there was nobody there. I pulled my laptop into my lap and typed in, "Can breast implants make you sick?" And that is when I started to find thousands and thousands of women with symptoms just like mine.
Mhm. Wow.
And that started me on that journey.
Okay, and so this was 40-ish. How long before you made the decision that these had to come out?
I had my implants out within 8 weeks of that.
Oh, you're a fast mover.
Yeah.
Some people take years to get this done.
No. Oh
O
no. I mean, I had my quality of life was zero. I couldn't get out of bed. I would have done anything. And so, I went to my functional practitioner. I went to my doctors. My doctors were like, Absolutely not. There's no proof that there's no reason this would have anything to do with all of these things that are going on with you. I said, well, you've got no answers as to why this is happening to me. And then I went to the my functional practitioner and they were like, yeah, possibly. It's worth a shot. So it's like, shouldn't you guys thought of this? It's a foreign object. This is kind of
So
making sense
I
to
want to
me.
make that point right there. I want to emphasize that the reason they call for those of us who practice medicine and functional genomics and nutritional health, it is a practice. We're constantly learning. We
Right,
we have some tricks in our bags, but we don't know everything. We're not
right.
all knowing. So you have a PhD in Candice. You
Hmm.
know your body better than anybody else. So just because somebody has letters behind their name, and I got a lot of them, but you know
Hmm.
what? I'm not inside your body going,
Right,
I heard a voice, I know, and what you're giving me isn't working. They work for you. And
right.
whether you partner with your prescribers and your practitioners or whether you fire them because they're telling you you're crazy. I
Yeah.
know I have 3 acquaintances who've been very public about their explants and how they were just like you, they were laid out in bed
Yep.
and they were going nowhere, and literally, I looked at them, and these were young women in their 20s and 30s that just were like
Hmm.
and then they started from the day they had an explant, they're showing from um, their hospital bed, and I'm thinking, "Why are you doing this? Why are you sharing all this with everyone?" I now realize
Hmm.
there's so many things in life that we didn't used to talk about, whether it was sexual molestation or whether it was physical abuse or whether all the things we as women, and nobody wanted to talk about, hey, I had this
Hmm.
surgery, which was an optional surgery, a vanity surgery, a self improvement surgery. No
Hmm.
judgment there. Just, health insurance didn't pay for it because you had to come up with some serious money. Oops, did I make a mistake? And now I've got to undo it. And it's just as
Hmm.
expensive, if not twice and 3 times as expensive as getting them. And the fear of judgment. Like you said, you had been bullied. We had both been bullied as children. And then to go back to, am I going to be bullied now? Or am I going to be, somebody's going to say, well, that didn't solve your problems. You just wasted all that money. I mean, did you have
Yeah.
fears about having them done or
About
about the judgment that would come after?
No, it was I was so sick and I was so ready to be able to participate in life again. I didn't even really think that much about what am I going to be left with. It was like I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I just want to be able to live. And
Yeah.
so that was an issue down the road, because I had such little tissue, because I was doing explant like right at the beginning, where, because there's a very specific way that explant has to be done. You have to remove the entire scar capsule that forms around it to try to protect your body from the foreign object. That scar capsule has to be removed. It will not be reabsorbed like some surgeons say. And many surgeons do not want to remove that scar capsule because it is a very tedious and a slightly dangerous, if you don't know what you're doing, surgery to do. And the reason that scar capsule has to be removed is it is harboring and protecting you from the chemical contaminants that do degrade from the implant shell over time, and from PCR testing that we've done on them, we know that there are biofilms and bacteria that hang out within that capsule. And then, even
I'm going
though
to
it's,
summarize that for a second before we go on. It
yeah,
basically is forming a barrier. It's building a wall to keep you safe, but it's
yes,
absorbing all of that. And just like any wall, it may be in a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood, but when you're trying to keep stuff out, the bad guys tend to come. So the microbiome, which is the thousands and millions of different kind of microbes, some are good ones, some are not so good ones. And what I heard you say was there was a lot of junk that was there. It was a very dirty wall. It was a lot of junk, and that can keep you sick even after you've taken a majority of
yes, up
the
to up to
implant.
40% of the capsules test positive for biofilms and bacteria and fungus. And
Okay.
so, and most of those are, things like Cutibacterium acnes, sometimes it's staph. There can be different things because when you have a foreign object and then you have some type of bacterial contaminant that surges through your body, it goes to the foreign object. So and your body tries to encapsulate that off. So up to 40% of the time there can be those biofilms. So by opening that and leaving that within the body, oftentimes women will have a worsening of symptoms if they get their implants removed and leave the scar capsules behind. And
So if a woman has had an explant and it did not resolve her issues, and there's people are telling her, well, it's because it wasn't the implants in the first place. You need to find out if you have the capsule. How would they know? Would it be on their surgery report?
yes, it would be
Because
on
not
their
everybody's
office.
yeah, not everybody's an expert in doing this, and that's gonna be one of the next things we need to talk about.
Correct. Yes, it would be on their operation notes. It would say either en bloc, meaning all in one piece, or a total capsulectomy. If it says partial capsulectomy, that means they only removed part of the capsule. If it doesn't say that at all, it means they didn't remove any of the capsule. You want a total capsulectomy. The other reason
So
is
I'm gonna
because,
do that real quickly because I want people to be able
right.
total capsulectomy. Total means complete.
Mhm.
Capsule is the capsule that formed. Is a surgery to remove.
Correct.
Partial means they got part of the capsule, but they left some capsule. And if there is nothing in there about capsulectomy, then they left the capsule. So if
Correct.
you've had breast plants removed and you're still having symptoms, you need to get a copy of your surgery report, or you need to review it and see if there's capsulectomy, partial, total. For those of you who've had a hysterectomy, it's a partial or total. If it's
Mhm.
a partial, then they probably left your ovaries or some other pieces.
Mhm.
If it's total, then ovaries came, the uterus came, everything was tied up. So
Right.
partial always means something was left behind. Okay.
Correct, correct. And some women do have, the correct en bloc. En bloc means all in one piece, an en bloc total capsulectomy, and they might still struggle with symptoms. But that is what I say is, so if you are having major inflammation from your breast implants, think of that as a house fire. So you remove your implants and the capsules. So you've put out the house fire. You're still going to have fire damage that you are going
Mhm.
to have to go address. So
Mhm.
might have an imbalance of your hormones. You might have super high continued systemic toxicity because your liver is not functioning correctly. Again, this is where it's so important to know your genetics because you're able to address those and make sure you're supporting yourself supplementally in those pathways. But detox is a very important part of running a detox protocol after explant surgery once your surgeon has cleared you to do so.
So, we'll come back to the surgeon in a minute. Did you run your DNA prior to your explant so you knew that you had? Okay, so how long after your explant? Well, let's do this. You had your explant.
Mhm.
How did you feel?
I immediately woke up and felt different. I could tell that I had made the right decision. I could breathe better. Yeah, I could breathe better. Which was very interesting. I mean, it makes sense when you realize how heavy the implants are. They're over your lungs. You develop scar tissue over that makes it difficult for your lungs to completely expand. There's a lot of different reasons that women can breathe better. But the buzzing, this very strange, almost feeling of being medicated, almost even though I had just come out from anesthesia, that felt different. And so over the next, few weeks as I was recovering from surgery, which I had a difficult time recovering from anesthesia because of the state of my liver. And since that's the way you primarily process anesthesia, that was difficult for me. And again, knowing that I am not an optimal detoxer genetically, another reason that was such an issue. But as I did, and then as I started to do more liver supporting protocols, I began to notice a huge transformation.
And so when did you do your DNA test? So you started to feel better. You felt better right away. You started to heal. When did you do your DNA test and why? I mean, you had your explants out.
Right. So, through this whole journey, I now work as a patient advocate for women who are going through breast implant illness or explant surgery. And so, at the time, I was working for an explant surgeon who is definitely a leader in the field of explant and BII, and I was sharing a lot about the surgeon because he was doing genetic testing and he was, looking at different inflammatory markers and understanding you need to do some total toxicity tests to see what was going on. So I was like, oh, I want to do my genetics. Now that I'm seeing women, I was seeing women who had breast implant illness and them getting their genetics back, and me seeing like, oh my gosh, all of them have two, three, or four of these main immune detox pathways that do not function optimally. I wonder what mine are. And so then when I did my DNA test, it was very, very clear that I was a 4 for 4 as far as all of them suboptimal.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's interesting as I prepared for this, and I was so excited because I have one of my dearest, dearest, dearest friends right now who's going on this same journey.
Hmm.
And we have worked, gosh, I've known her for 7 or so years, and we've worked for the last 4 to figure out, was it a gut issue? Was it a scar issue? Was it a post-surgical issue? Was it a and we finally went, we think it's BII. And then
Hmm.
we've been going down that pathway with her DNA. And I went and looked at, um, our DNA test. Now, people know that the DNA company has 72 actionable DNA SNPs that you can say, I'm here and I want to get here, and here's the actions you can take.
Yep.
I went and looked at, well, okay, how many are going to be related to breast health? How many are going to be related to BII? I found 27. 27. Now, some of those, like the methylation pathway, and there's 4 that we test for in there. Most people just test their MTHFR and they get optimal, suboptimal, or not at all. But there's MTR, there's MTRR, there's SHMT1. So we go a lot deeper than
Yep.
most places go. And some of it's like if you get a no on the MTHFR, you think, oh, my methylation's fine. Well, not necessarily. And that is a whole pathway, and the COMT pathway, and the CYP pathway, and the vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A, even TCF7L2, which is insulin resistance, so that
Hmm.
which are inflammatory pathways. I didn't even add in the cardiovascular inflammation pathways,
Right.
which if I added those, there's like 30. I would liken to say that I could say half of the profile that we have at the DNA company could some way or another either identify symptoms or show you a pathway that's blocked. And for
Hmm.
those of you who are new to DNA and you found this for BII, when we look at your DNA, it if you look at traditional medicine, we have a cardiologist and a gynecologist and a family practitioner and a dermatologist, and they all have their own little islands. When we look
Yep.
at the DNA and we look at the genes, each of those islands should build a bridge to the next island so you can get all the way around. Or if you think of it like a clock, you've seen those skeleton clocks where all the cogs, you can see each one, but they all go together. That's what your body does. When we look at your detox pathways or when we look at your DNA, I can see an island sitting over here, like your methylation island, but there's no bridges. So, what do we do as functional genomic practitioners? We show you how to build a bridge on so you can methylate and build a bridge off so you can detox. And it's like whether it's food, whether it's supplementation, whether it's lifestyle changes, whether in some cases it's medicines, we can help manipulate that biochemistry so you can heal. So, what I heard you say is you looked at your DNA and the 4 major detox pathways, glutathione pathways, methylation pathways, estrogen detox pathways, you're suboptimal or obsolete in all of them. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what happened next?
So, what was interesting is through over the years, I had been, it's kind of like just blindly throwing darts at a dartboard trying to hit, what supplements work for me. And it was very interesting because I was essentially taking everything that I needed to support those pathways, um, and then taking things that I didn't. So I was able to really hone in
Yeah,
and
tighten it up.
increase on certain things, to really. It just made sense. As oh, that's why I felt so much better when I started implementing glutathione. That's why my melasma and my estrogen dominance, balanced out once I started including glutathione and taking a little bit of calcium D-glucarate. Like there was just things that were like it made sense as to why certain things worked for me. It made sense as to why whenever I tried to do a keto diet, I gained weight and felt worse. It's because that is a high fat, high protein only diet is not how my body functions. And then also understanding just, my sleep profile, everything made so much sense. And I had, through trial and error, years of trial and error post explant, been able to come very close to being able to support those things. And it was why I was doing so much better. But had I done the DNA test shortly after, I wouldn't have had to do trial and error. I would have known exactly how to support my body. I call the DNA test, it's a playbook for your body. It's how you understand the framework of how your body, your exact body functions. And it would have just saved me a lot of money, a lot of trial and error. But it was really, really amazing to be like, that's why that works for me. That's why that doesn't work for me. And that is why I had so many issues with my implants.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but those people who work with a DNA practitioner, they actually get a playbook,
Hmm.
their personal DNA playbook, and
Yes.
they get a copy of that, and then they fill in as they're working with their functional genomic practitioner because it
Yes.
outlines how should you exercise and what vitamins do you need to take, and you know what pathways need to be supplemented and what pathways are fine that you need to
Yep.
avoid. Now,
Yep.
you told me something else, which was some women decided to get explantation, but they were having no symptoms. Tell me about them. Tell me about what you found with them.
Yeah, so some women just get to a point where you're supposed to replace your implants every 10 years, and once they've reached 70 years old, they're like, I've liked having my implants, I've really not had any issues. And again, this was very few. I would say like 10% of the women that I saw had no symptoms. But I just want to have them removed, and I want to have them removed properly. And because the doctor I was working with did all of the testing, including the DNA test, it would always be very interesting to see that these women came back with absolute, what I would call perfect genetics. They did not have any of those pathways that were suboptimal. They all functioned beautifully. And, they didn't have any chronic inflammation issues. They had no autoimmune diseases. They were not on any medication. And some of these women were up in their 70s and just great and had great genetics. So it
And
was.
so, if a woman was considering getting implants, going, well, I've been wanting them, but I've been hesitant, I'm not sure. They could do a DNA test beforehand and see if they have optimal or suboptimal detox pathways, and they
Yes.
would have a better idea whether or not they might have problems in the future and
Yeah, I would.
or how to keep those pathways open to prevent possible problems.
Absolutely, it would definitely be a good place to start, to know that and go, oh, I am primed to have issues with these. Um, but even still, I would say what I have noticed, what my observation has been, is that many women, even if they have fairly good genetics, maybe if only one of those pathways is suboptimal and they're able to support it, is that we have so many environmental exposures now that the the stimulation to your immune system that having the foreign object of implants elicits is just too much with our current environment.
Mhm.
Because I've worked with women who are 22 years old, who are, in the prime of their life. And as far as you can combat almost anything when you're in your 20s, and they start experiencing pretty significant symptoms within a few months, and they're looking to get their implants out within 6 months. So, I think that yes, it's definitely an important piece if you are ever considering getting implants, is to know your genetics and know whether or not you are more likely to experience issues, but also being aware that you are going to compromise your body's ability to function at its peak, immune wise.
Well, and I think we make those decisions every day, whether it's
Hmm.
I'm going to eat fried foods, whether it is
Yeah.
I'm going to eat fast food, whether it is I'm going to drink alcohol,
Right.
whether it is I'm going to smoke. We make those decisions every day.
We sure do.
So when we make those, like you said, it's called informed consent. Now you
Yes.
can say, I know that I have great detox. This is still important to me. I was
Yep.
bullied or I feel inferior and I still want to do this. I just know that I'm going to do great. I'm not going to do great. There's a possibility. I mean, when people start smoking, it's like, yes, I could get lung cancer, but once a year doesn't hurt me. Okay, fine. Somebody wants to smoke a cigar once a year, whatever. I mean, whether it is to take and I think a lot of people don't think about this. Again, no judgment, just facts. Taking pharmaceuticals, and I am a pharmacist by training, but I
Hmm.
am an unprescribing pharmacist because taking pharmaceuticals in a majority of cases suppresses a symptom. It doesn't heal. Now, if you're talking about an antibiotic and you've got a little infection, okay, there's a healing that occurs,
Right.
but you're going to disrupt a microbiome. So, yes, you're healing here, but you're maybe disrupted. Now you've got to go in and repair that. So everything we do, whether it's getting behind a car, getting on a plane, traveling internationally right now in all this crazy world, it comes with consequences. But now you've got information about those consequences. So
Yes.
you decided to start helping women. You started Holistic Life. Holistic Life. Tell us about what you've done recently because I'm really, really proud of you. I've been asked for ages to do this and I just haven't sat down to do it. Will you
Yeah.
show us what you just completed? And
Yes. Yes. It's a listicle life, but this is my book, Powered Explant, which I wrote with a functional PA who specializes in BII, the gut.
now show us the cover. I want everybody to see it because I love string art and I just like think it is just so
Yeah.
gorgeous.
So I
That
wanted it to
beautiful woman's face.
Yeah, I wanted women to be able to take this with them on the plane or in a coffee shop, and it not be obvious that this is a book about getting explant surgery. And
Yeah.
so this book is literally, it is your personal advocacy guide to navigating BI and explant surgery. So it is a book explaining how to heal, everything from the terminology that you need to know when you start down the path of breast implant illness or inflammation, and then the questions that you need to ask when you are going in for consultations with surgeons. I take you through everything from building your medical profile to the different types of lifts should you decide to do a lift, to the options for reconstruction, which are fat transfer, to ultimately how to pay for your surgery, what happens in the preparation, the months and weeks before surgery. It's all about lowering inflammation as you go into surgery, and then exactly step by step what happens. Because what I was doing, I'm not doing it as much anymore, but I would go in with women to surgery and hold their hand as they were put under and be with them as soon as they woke up and just walk them every step through the whole process. So essentially, that's what I'm doing here through the book. And then everything you need to know for recovery. The functional practitioner talks a lot about healing opportunities, and that's where we talk about the importance of knowing your genetics, and just doing everything from castor oil packs to red light therapy and saunas and detoxing afterwards. Just from anesthesia alone, much less, your body being in a compromised state of detox while you have implants.
So where do we get that? Because I want one for my girlfriend. I
Y-
told you one of my
y-
dearest girlfriends going, so I need to know where to find
Yeah,
this and get this.
yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's called Empowered
Okay.
Explant, and it's available
Okay.
on Amazon. Get it in like 2 days. And women, if you are just starting to think maybe I'm having issues with my implants, but I'm not sure. This goes through that we walk you through symptoms and a timeline, because timeline's very important. Did you have this before you had implants? And a lot of women you have implants for 20 years. And so you had it so long you don't even realize that, wait, all of these things started to happen after this, and this. So there's tipping points, and we walk you through all of that.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. Um, so if someone wants to contact you, how would
Mhm.
they do that? If they do want a little more hand holding outside of the book, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, I have an Instagram page called Holistico Life, so at Holistico Life, and there I share in my stories daily. I answer a lot of questions and give recommendations through my DMs, and I have lots of resources as far as content and reels on there. I also have a website that is holisticolife.com, and I have explant resources and other podcasts and lots of information there on products that I recommend. And then women can book private consultations with me when my schedule's open. I do still do private consultations.
So Olistico, for those of us, because she says it so quickly, Olistico,
Yeah,
Olistico.com.
Holistico, holisticolife.com. Yes.
Okay, holisticolife.com. So if you needed that, go back and rewind.
Yep.
Olistico Life. And I know that you're going to offer an amazing opportunity that if someone, well, I can have you do it. If someone decides they want a DNA test, I know we're going to work with you and tell us what's going to happen there.
Yeah, yeah. I have a code, Holistico Life, that when you go to buy the DNA, the 360 functional genomics, you guys have many amazing tests, but that's generally where I have women start, is with that test, so that they can really understand. And there's really you can do this at any time. There's some testing that you're supposed to do before you have explant surgery. There's some testing that you want to wait till 3 months after. Your genetics don't change. So the sooner you can get this done and understand how your body works, the sooner you can begin supporting it in a way that makes sense for you. And for me, it was just a total aha moment when I got my results back, and I have been operating from that report ever since.
Now, I will tell people, maybe you don't have breast implants. Maybe you know someone who does. Share the code with them. Maybe you say, I don't have breast implants. I don't know anybody who's got chronic inflammation, but I just don't feel 100%. Use the code for yourself. Look at your detox pathways. Many of you have heard me say before, I had cancer at 21
Mm.
and no one could figure out why. They wanted to make me girl in the plastic bubble. They wanted to put me in, have a bone marrow transplant. I would have stayed in isolation for 3 months. It was $1 million worth of medical debt. I was 21 and I was too Scotch Irish to agree to $1 million worth of medical debt for maybe. I didn't have my DNA. I finally had somebody say, you don't need all these drugs. You need to change your diet. I said, great. How do I do that? They said, find yourself some little nutritionist. So I did. She was 4'11". She was 82 years old. She was Italiano, Sal. And She kicked my butt and saved my life. She put me on a severely restricted diet, and I was on 143 pills a day. Like you, we threw everything at it. I was taking 40
Mhm.
plus pills at every meal. People said, "How do you have any room to eat after you take that many pills?" But I got my life back,
Yeah.
and I felt great, and I didn't need medicine anymore. I didn't need antibiotics. I had more antibiotics than most women have periods in a year. I'd have 2 weeks of being well, 2 weeks of being sick, round of antibiotics, and we'd start again. So literally, it blew my body out. I had all sorts of candida. And what would they have fed me in the hospital?
Ja
Jello, juice, grilled cheese,
Coke.
macaroni and cheese, Coke. Okay. All of those things are what I'm allergic to. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
gluten intolerant. I'm MTHFR and more, you know, all my compromise. But when I finally got my genetics and said, "Oh, I called myself a vegetarian. I should not be." When you look at your vitamin pathways, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, oh, I'm compromised. I
Mhm.
can't utilize this, or I can't utilize this form. I need
Right.
a specific form. Once you start looking and you can tweak, oh, I have to have animal based vitamin D. Therefore, or vitamin A. Therefore, I eat butter. I don't eat seed oils, which cause
Yep.
inflammation. I need methylated Bs, but only a few, because if I get too many, I get too wound up. I
Yeah.
was able to undo each one of those, and I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to take 143 pills a day. Instead, I take like 6.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what we can find out. It's amazing what we can learn from each other. Just
Oh,
because you don't have a number of initials behind your name doesn't mean you don't know what's going on with your own body.
right.
Doesn't mean you can't find. You found what worked for you by finding what didn't work for you. And now I see you shortening that path so women don't have to be humiliated or put down or just told it's all in your head, because there was something real wrong with you. And then you've undone. We can do, but we can also step back and undo. I'm
Absolutely.
so excited for your book. I'm so excited for your journey. I'm so honored that you're willing to share with such transparency. I said in the beginning, there's so many things we didn't used to talk about, and we were so ashamed to talk about. And this is a very intimate part of the body, a very intimate discussion. And yet, when we look at you physically, you're radiant, you're beautiful. When we hear you talk, you're passionate and compassionate. And when we see what you've been able to do to raise your 3 boys, get your life back, prioritize yourself, it is awe inspiring for anyone who
Mhm.
has a chronic illness and says, "Where can I go from here?"
Yeah.
And to get the right test with someone who says, "Let's partner, not I'm the authority."
Right.
If you had one final aha or one final message for women who are impacted or know someone who's impacted or just are moved, like I keep continue to get my God bumps, what would you give them? What would you give them as a guidance?
Yeah, what I tell all the women that I work with is above all is to listen to their gut. I have so many of them come to me and say, you know, I've been told this or this doctor thinks this. I think that it's this. What do you think? And I always say, you just told me. You already know. And I think, deep down, I always knew, but I was listening to everyone telling me that's not, none of those things could be. A lot of times it's just brainwashing or, not informed consent. So I want all women to listen to their gut and to follow that, whether it is, in the doctors that they work with. In I even tell them, many will go to the most well recognized explant surgeon, and they feel like, "Ugh, I didn't connect with him. Something doesn't feel right." And I say, listen to that. And they go, well, but they're the
Absolutely.
best. They're known to be their best. They're not. right for you, and you feel that
Yeah.
in your gut.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just
Yeah.
listen to your gut. You already know.
Well, I love it that you said you take quiet time, whether it was your trip to Italy, whether it was morning prayers or meditation,
Mhm.
whether it was just daily quiet time to check in. How am I doing today?
Yeah.
I think if we took more time to get
Mhm.
quiet, and then you said you heard in your ear and you had never heard, you listened to that wisdom.
Mhm.
And that wisdom is so powerful. So if today you're hearing from two women that are passionate about health, that are passionate about helping others heal, if you sit in that quiet time and say, I need more information, hopefully today you have more resources going to Holistic Life, getting your Candace's beautiful new book, whether it's going to the DNA company and listening to more podcasts or more webinars. We welcome you. We welcome you to come on this journey of healing, knowing yourself, trusting yourself, and getting yourself through this. And we're here to help you every step of the way. Candace, thank you so much for being with us. God bless you on your journey. Thank you for all the people you're helping. It was such a pleasure to have you here today, and I look forward to having you back again.
Thank you so much.